What is up guys, this is Locke, YGO, and welcome back to the channel. And today guys, I'm bringing you my updated version of my fossil deck profile. And guys, not gonna lie, I didn't really like how my first version of the deck turned out, so I just had to update the deck quite soon for you guys. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this is not the standard build you will be seeing in most fossil decks, because I actually, together with a friend of mine, shout out to Cerobytes, together we came up with the alternative not to play Delta, and I actually ended up liking this alternative way more than just playing 3 Delta. So this is a more defensive build, a little bit slower build, with a little bit of a more control focused aspect to the deck, but I still think this deck does its job, which is OTK when it needs to. So I've been having a lot of fun playing with this deck, and especially this build, so I couldn't wait to share it with you guys. So without any further ado, let's get right into the profile, and we start with the skill. It's Jim Crocodile Cook, and it's still major in paleontology. I'm not gonna spend the whole time reading the skill, so if you guys wanna read it, you can just pause the video right here. But this is the skill you must play if you wanna play fossils. So moving on, now we get into the main deck itself, and we have still triple Weathering Soldier. This card is amazing. If it gets destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can search any card that mentions Fossil Fusion, and one of those cards is the Shell Knight, and we now play it at 2 for a specific reason, and that reason is because it can search the Gaia Plate. And guys, most of the time we will not be summoning Gaia Plate, even though he's really cool. Most of the times he will be banished off of your skill's effect in order to get the dig counter on it. So usually you can use Shell Knight to search it out and just banish it to get the counter on the skill, or you can use Weathering Soldier to search your Shell Knight, which in the future might search you your Gaia Plate from your deck to your hand. Moving on, we play one copy of Neospatian Grand Mole, just as an annoying body on the field that bounces monsters back to the hand. And moving on, the last monsters we play, it's still Double Sphere Kuriboh. This card is great in this deck as a defensive option, and also because it helps you fueling up your graveyard with non-rock type monsters that are level 4 or lower for your skills fusion into the Fossil Fusion monsters. And now we move on into the traps, and we play triple Time Stream. This is a must. You must play this card at 3, it's what makes the OTK possible, the combo, and also has that secondary little effect in the graveyard that sometimes comes up, and it does come up in this version of the deck way more than it would in the normal version, since we're playing a more control focused build. Moving on, we play double Foolish Burial, and guys, people are now trying to run one Foolish Burial and one Jinzo in the second slot of the 2 of Limited, because this deck loses hard against some traps, and so Jinzo nullifies that weakness the deck has. Anyway, moving on, we play double copies of Night Beam and double copies of Dark World Lightning, and this is here as some added removal, I think 4 for the removal of spell traps or whatever you need is the sweet spot on this deck, to be honest. And Dark World Lightning is in here because if you guys don't know what this does, you can target one set card on the field, and keep in mind it's not a spell trap, it can also target a monster, and you will destroy that target. Then you discard one card, and this is an effect. So you can trigger the Weathering Soldier by discarding it off of the Dark World Lightning and get the search for Time Stream or Shell Knight, and if you discard Shell Knight, you can actually search still the Gaia because it will also trigger its effect. Moving on, we play the Spice, double Share the Pain. This is the alternative that I play to the Delta, and this card, even though it does not trigger Shell Knight or the Weathering Soldier, it's still very good against some specific decks because you just fuel up both graveyards in order to be ready for the skills effect and start fusing off and try to win the game from there. So this card actually and surprisingly works really well in this deck. Moving on into the traps, we play 5, so we play one of Flunked Trapple. If we could, we would play more, but this card is limited to 1. We play a little bit of a Spice, released from Stone. Like I said, this deck is a little bit slower than the average fossil deck, so we can actually afford to play cards like this that special summon monsters that are banished from the graveyard back to the field. And this actually comes up quite sometimes. And finally, in the last card, we play triple copy of Woboku. This card is insane in this format so I maxed out on it just to have some more survivability with this deck and bias the time that we need in order to start developing our game plan and potentially go in for the win. And this is all for the main deck. Now we move on into the extra and side decks. We play one copy of Skull Buggy. This is optional, you can change this for the Skullbone, which I play 2 of, but I'm trying out the deck still, so I'm experiencing with one Skull Buggy and double Skullbone. But if I end up not liking this at all, I will switch back to the 3 Skullbone, but for the time being I'm playing one Skull Buggy and double Skullbone. And I'm also playing the standard double Skull Knight, which is a very great card, and I think it should most of the time be played at least at 2, because from the added effect of 2 attacks on monsters and piercing battle damage, it also has that sweet little effect in the graveyard, in which you banish this card from the graveyard and target and destroy one monster your opponent controls, which is insane. And finally, the last fusion, it's one Skull Gaius. Just one, if we could we would run more, but the extra deck is limited to 6, so we can only afford to run 6, and I think this is the one that we have to run at 1 copy if we have to choose one of them. And now we move on into the side deck. We play Anti-Magic Arrows and Galaxy Cyclone. We play these 2 cards as a way to deal with your opponent's back row, but if I could I would play 2 Anti-Magic Arrows, as I cannot seem to find the second copy of my card, I don't know where they are, so for the time being I'm playing one Galaxy Cyclone, which also kinda does the job in a way. And now, the last spell on the side, we play one Hammer Shot. You guys already know I really like this card, it's really funny when it resolves, it's actually really competent, and it actually saves you the game sometimes, so I'm running one of it in the side deck as a way to deal with more higher attack monsters your opponent might have while we're trying to set up our combo. And now we move on into the traps, and we play one copy of Mind Crush. This is just a great card overall, and like in every deck profile, double copy of Lost Wind, which is a very good card. You guys already know, I'm not gonna spend the time explaining this once again. So this is all for my deck profile, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to leave a like down below, feel free to comment down below what you think about this build. I know this is not the standard build, but if you guys do want me to show you the standard fossil build, I'll show you in a video in the future. So if you do want to watch the standard deck profile of this deck, not my own special version, feel free to comment down below and ask for it, as I read all the comments you guys leave down below and try to please you as much as possible regarding the requests you make in decks that you want to see in my channel. So yeah guys, this is all for today's video, I hope you guys enjoyed, and like always, this is LockYGO, and I'll see you on the next one, out!